Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning,
Olsen.
Chairman.
It's taken a while for my battery to rev up. That's why I haven't said anything.
Yeah, good morning. Let me go get my coffee too, and then I can smell it.
Yeah, just be chatting. Coffee? You
I
come
think he
on
went to
now.
get coffee. I think he went to get his coffee.
Oh, he went to get, yeah.
There are a lot.
People are connecting.
Yeah,
Dan,
there are a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
let them, I think you've let them in automatic, isn't it?
Yes. Anybody can get in automatically. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Great.
Kwesi, have you taken your tea, your coffee?
Yes, you are the tea country.
He's drinking.
Yeah.
Such a very huge cup. How much did you pay for it?
See, it's a birthday gift, Grandpa.
Grandpa,
Yeah.
me too, I was given a birthday gift, a big cup like that, but it got broken.
Oh.
I was so angry for about 2 weeks.
Mm.
When I just do my tea, it's huge. And I just drink and drink and drink. But it got broken. My daughter bought it for me.
All right.
Here, you can't get those big cups. You can only get them in Canada. So they brought it from Canada. I don't know whether the Canadians use big cups or what.
I think it's an American thing, North American thing.
Okay.
Big cups of tea and coffee.
Yeah. The George, you are welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. You are from?
That's Professor Day.
Yeah.
Eh?
That's our main speaker, Professor Day from Canada.
Okay. You are welcome. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. The time is about 4 minutes after 2. Let's wait. Let's just chat, introduce ourselves, and then give 5 more minutes, please.
Yeah.
I know somebody said that please, if it is 1 GMT, we should start, but sometimes let's just give people 5 more minutes. Yeah. You can introduce yourselves. Yeah.
So what do we go from top to bottom, left to right?
Yeah.
Right to left,
starting from Dan.
top.
Starting from Dan.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, good day, good afternoon. My name is Dan Bensel. A member of CNNA and PAG in Florida.
Kofi Roberts in Atlanta, a member of CNNA, PAG. What did I say? I'm in Atlanta, right? Okay. I had to think for a minute. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Yen Nyaya, Social Justice Movement, DAG. I said DAG. PAG. Currently in London from Bolgatanga, Ghana.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, this me. It's Kwesi Budu. Just waking up in California, 6 a.m. And good morning to everybody. I'm a member of a CNNA and PAG as well.
Good.
Okay.
Moderator.
Okay, the order is different on everybody's screen.
The order is different, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Tad Olsen. I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Chairman of CNNA and PAG. Everybody's welcome.
I'm Eugene Asola, PAG member, and I'm in Georgia, Valdosta, USA.
And I'm George Sifade. at the University of Toronto, and Tadi and I go way, way, way back.
That's right. You used to have a lot more hair than George.
How about
when we did the nightclubs.
1922?
No.
17th century.
George, we thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
So we'll be happy.
No, glad to be here. Yeah.
Yes.
There's Jojo there coming in. 1+. Who are you, please? Jojo.
Okay.
Constance.
From very poor network area.
From Ghana. I'm a freelance writer and a point contributor to Plant and Poetry magazine.
Okay. Jojo.
Still connecting.
It keeps coming in and out, so
Yeah.
bear with me.
Okay.
And once, okay. Should we, let's see.
Yeah,
We'll start in a minute, in 2 minutes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 minutes time we'll start, yeah.
Nicholas Atampuru is my name, Social Justice Movement and PAG, currently in London.
Okay.
Yeah, who hasn't introduced himself or herself? We've got only one here.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we need to
Start, yeah.
as well.
Okay, let's start and hope people will join us.
All right.
So I'll set the ball rolling and start. Once again, I wish to welcome you to today's discussion on education, especially focusing on education at the primary and nursing level. I will not bore you and go into it since you will be taken through and invited to participate in the discussion. Excuse me, and for those of you who do not know about the Progressive Alliance for Ghana, PAG, let me give you a brief introduction of PAG. The PAG is an association of progressive organizations in Ghana and abroad, and even individuals who have come together to provide an alternative to the two-party system in Ghana, that is the MPP and the NDC, who are birds of the same feather and do not provide an alternative to the decadent socio-economic system in Ghana. The two parties maintain and struggle among themselves as to who best represent the interests of foreign interests and which of them can plunder and loot the meager resources left after foreign interests have taken their undue share. We are seeking to work with all progressive forces in Ghana who want a better alternative to the existing status quo. We are coming out as a political party, not because we want to form a new party, but because we have scoped the political horizon in Ghana and cannot find any genuine political movement or party that truly represent the interests of ordinary people. We have noted that there are parties, especially the CPP and the PNC, as well as others who claim to represent progressive thought. We are not in any way against these parties and would have hoped that we are together in the same boat, but cannot do so at present because of the hijacking of these parties by forces that work with both for either the MPP or the NDC. To get Ghana out of the doldrums, we need a new kind of party, committed first and foremost to the interests of our people, a party that will work with the people, especially the youth and other vulnerable people, and to use the electoral process and win power for the people. We know that this is a gigantic task, and with the money politics in Ghana, it seems almost impossible, but a must we must do. We need to find a way of mobilizing the people and provide them with an alternative and move them away from the MPP and the NDC. Of course, in this way, in the way in which our teeming masses attend political rallies of these parties, despite COVID-19, shows that we have a long way to go. After all, though some are paid to attend these rallies, we cannot say that all do so. We have to find a way to reach out to these people and work with them to understand that they need to take the destiny of this country to themselves, so with their own hands, instead of waiting for corrupt politicians to come occasionally and whip them into hysteria to vote for either one of them. For those of you who are joining this discussion for the first time and do not belong to any of the component organizations in the PAG, we urge you to join us or leave your details at the chat section so that we can get in touch with you. These discussions are part and parcel of our work towards getting a political program to represent the interests of our people. Without further much ado, I hand you over to Professor Asola to moderate for the day, who will take us through all the discussions. Thank you very much for attending, and over to you, Prof.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And as you all heard, we are here for the interest of our people. I would like to lay the ground rules for this public forum. Please be mindful of interruptions, especially when your mic is not muted. If you are speaking, you have your mic on mute, and if you are not speaking, please remember to mute your mic. Raise your hand to be called, and use the chat window or panel if you want to send a message to any of us or to the moderator or the chairperson. Thank you. Is Amina Yapaga Ewuntuma with us? Amina? Miss Constance, are you in Ghana or where are you?
Constance, on mute.
Yes, I'm in Ghana.
Would you please, in the place of Amina Ewuntuma, tell us what the education situation is right now in Ghana? Whether it's good, bad, anything that you can say about it, please.
Primary level?
The education system in Ghana currently is seeing some changes in terms of the improvement in the curriculum of the subjects that the children in primary schools. And there also be the introduction of IT for them to study. But I feel
Constance, I'm sorry, you're listening. There's so much interference, please.
Hold on. There is some background noise in your communication, Constance. Do you want to check that, and then we'll get back with you? We'll get back with you, or you can use the chat and then we'll read it out.
Maybe beyond her control. It's a system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if it, let her continue to talk and see if it gets better.
Okay. Go ahead. Miss Constance, go ahead.
Okay, and I think that the education system in Ghana is quite okay than it the way it used to be previously, because there have been some changes
It's not getting better. Miss Constance, is not getting better. Could you please use the chat for us? Thank you. And I would like to call on the next lay speaker, who is Miss Amega Gao, are you with us?
That's her. That's Constance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's Constance.
Yeah.
That's Constance. So that we only have Constance. Is there anyone in Ghana right now who can give us some information? Hillary, please could you mute your those who are just joining, I want to remind you, mute your mics if you're not talking. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If we can't, is Hillary, is Bismarck there, please?
Not yet. Bismarck is not in yet.
What about
Richard is here. Yeah, Aiden is not in yet. Linda is also on.
Yeah, because if Aiden was in, he is from the he has worked with education for years and years. So if he could say something,
okay.
Yeah. Is there anybody who has worked with apart from Bismarck and others?
I don't think it has to be somebody who has worked with education. Even anybody who has a child in school,
yeah,
can give us an idea of the experience of the system. And any person who's not even an educator.
And Bismarck, you have been working with young people. Can you, Hillary, can you say something about the educational system, please?
Well, I can say something.
All right. Let's have Hillary and then Nicholas, brother Hillary and brother Nicholas.
Okay, so can I proceed?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Hillary.
Well, I think I would like to share an experience that I chanced upon, I should say, just a few weeks back. I have a neighbor that has got a job in Accra. I am in Bogatanga. And she was checking to see which school she can put her son in. And I was shocked to, realize that we have schools that pay fees for nursery children to the tune of 120,000 Ghana cedis per term. I was shocked to hear that, so maybe it's one of the things that I would really love us to know, because I was shocked to hear that. And I decided that let me check on a few more schools. And I noticed that we have schools that pay 78,000, 40,000, just for a term for nursery kids, But having said that, let me just mention that at least the experience I have here in Bogatanga working with children, and I think we all know that it is common knowledge that if you want your children to do well, then you should be looking at putting them in a private school. That is what the situation is here. And as we may all be aware, our public schools are under-resourced. There are a lot of things that parents in public schools are not willing to commit for their kids. But parents who have wards in private schools are more willing to do a lot more to motivate the teachers so that their kids are taught well, if I should say. So maybe that's just a little that I probably can say for now.
Thank you. I think that's good. Now, thank you so much for giving us this background. Brother Nicholas.
Well, I'm currently serving as the political economy specialist on the team providing advice to the Ghana Education Service on behalf of the Department for International Development UK8. My brief is to look at the complementary basic education program and the out-of-school phenomenon. I've just submitted a comprehensive report over 52 pages, looking at the whole context, historical context and evolution of the complementary basic education program. For those who don't know what it's about, this was a program that was started essentially through some Danish NGOs and some NGO in Tamale. It looks at those kids predominantly from the north and other areas who are unable to attend formal school because they have to assist their families. They have to work, they have to go fishing, they have to do other things. So it's a scheme that is intended to afford such children of basic education level to be able to join formal education. They do it by first understanding that education policy for quite a while has downplayed the significance of instructions in local languages, i.e. the language that the child grows up with. So they have developed a scheme whereby children are first started on their basic language and then eventually upstreamed into joining the main educational scheme. It is a policy that has had significant results, but it is still more applicable to what I call marginal communities. Marginal communities in the sense that those in the extreme north, in the riverine areas, fisher folk, etc., children who have to find ways to earn a living in support of their families. The report is very comprehensive. Because of the fact that this is a formal presentation, I really don't want to go much into detail into that. But as part of this work, one of the things that struck me was the centrality of private sector education provision at basic level. By and large, a significant proportion of those who provide education services at the kindergarten and primary school level are private sector operators. And the issue that Hillary raises resonates quite clearly with me. I suggested that it is an area worth investigating because at the end of the day, the prime motivation for many of these actors is profit and not necessarily the well-being and educational development of the children. So it is something that we can discuss going forward, but in the context of PAG, the thing that stands out with me, which I think it is worth reflecting on, is whether as a question of policy, we can consider using our local languages at the basic level as a medium of instruction. I always tell people that I feel sad that I'm more able to communicate in English than I can in my own local language. I feel sad that my ability to construct my reality is framed by a foreign language whom I pretend I speak very well, but in reality, I'm not there. Let me just stop it at this so that as the conversation goes, there will be selective inputs on different aspects of it.
Thank you so much, Brother Nicholas. And those again joining us right now, I want to remind you, mute your microphones if you are not speaking. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that we need to take? We were supposed to have 3 lay speakers.
Can you check as well? Can you check back on Constance whether she is in a position to talk now?
Okay.
And if not, if Kofi can, since Kofi invited her, can get back to her and tell her that we couldn't hear her.
Is anybody monitoring the chat side to see if she posted something?
She posted her contact details.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't enter anything other than her details.
It looks like she left.
Yeah, she left. She's
okay.
No longer.
Okay.
Sorry, she is trying to rejoin.
Okay.
So
all right,
that
no
she
problem.
Can.
Yeah, so once he rejoined, if we can get her to talk.
No,
just a little bit to add to what Hilary is saying. I've been in Bulgaria for quite some time, And I'm getting very, very alarmed, at the rate in which the private sector is taking over educational system, especially at the nursery and primary level. In Ghana today, it's extremely expensive, to send your watch to school than the universities. It's cheaper for people to go to the universities, the polytechnics, or they are now all technical universities, than the secondary, than the private, the primary schools. Because what is happening is that almost everybody, sometimes even these schools don't have good teachers, but one way or the other, they get to secondary schools, they get to go to the best JCRs, they get to the best SS. So what we are, if the situation does not change, what is going to happen is that in the long term, what will happen is that it will only be privileged children who will get access to the SS, the so-called SS schools that we are having. And the working people, their children wouldn't. Even people who teach, teachers who even teach in the public schools, send their own children to the private schools. Bolga is a very small town, and it's awash with so many private schools. And I think if this man, Adongo is there, he will tell you, because he has been, he has some knowledge about these private schools. It's a phenomenon. I hope it's not all over Ghana, but I doubt whether it's not all over Ghana. So we have a long way to go in terms of our educational system, apart from the fact that it is bankrupt.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother.
I just wanted to add very briefly, okay, if I could, from Nicholas's presentation, that we seem to go around and discover new things which are old in a way. In 1960, when Nkrumah introduced compulsory free basic education, the policy was that lower primary school children were instructed in their own language.
Yeah.
And then when they went to upper primary school, then they started English, so that they developed with a good sense of their own language and their cultural identity and how they approach problems. Anyway, that's just a reflection on some of that.
Thank you, Chairman. Mm-hmm. Is Derek Mackay, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
You are a primary school teacher, if I'm right.
I'm a junior high school teacher.
Junior high school. Could you briefly, in 2-3 minutes, tell us what your experiences are, good, bad, whatever it is?
Okay. You see, talking about a language barrier, I teach mathematics, and I've been teaching for like 13 years. So I realized that using the English language creates barriers for the children, because I've taught in deprived areas since I started teaching. And the children have a problem with the English language. And teaching other subjects like mathematics in English language is like two problems in one, because mathematics itself is a problem. English is another problem for them. So because of that, now I use the local language to teach. Luckily enough, I understand Ga, understand P, understand Fanti, so I'm able to relate to the children more. And it helps them, it makes them understand it more, they contribute in class, So I believe that if we should go back to the local language, it's going to help the children a lot, not only in the primary, even JHS. I've had problems with my heads all this while about my using of local languages to teach. And I've told them point blank that I will not change it, because that is how I'm able to relate to the children very well. That is how the children are able to understand me very well. So I think it's very prudent that we look at it very well and then address that issue. Also to private schools, it's a system. I'm a teacher. It's like the system is downplaying the public schools so that the private schools can rise, because many of the in quote, big men have private schools. So they downplay the public schools so that the private schools can rise. So that is why a teacher in the system, knowing what is going on, we are talking about,
Oh, sorry,
you are
Derek,
feeding
you're
basic
off.
school, primary, even that schools, you are doing some schools. Let me just wrap up. You are doing some schools, you don't feed JHS and move straight to SS because you think they are going to vote for you. I think we have to really look at these things well and then address them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Derek. We cannot be more grateful. So we've had 3 or 4 people speak about underserved or under-resourced public institutions, and a report on the basic education, how private sector is profiting on the people of Ghana, and now how the language barrier is affecting especially early education. We will now go to the main speaker, and I will have the honor to introduce our guest speaker for today. Let me remind those who are just joining once again, please mute your microphones if you are not speaking. And I thank you so much for doing that. Our guest speaker today, Professor George Sefa Day, is a renowned educator, researcher, and writer who is considered by many as one of Canada's foremost scholars on race and anti-racism studies. He is widely sought after academic researcher and a community worker whose professional and academic work has led to many Canadian international speaking invitations in US, Europe, and Africa. Currently, he is Professor of Social Justice Education and Director of the Center for Integrative Anti-Racism Studies at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education of the University of Toronto. Professor Day is the 2015, 2016, 2018, 19 Carnegie African Diasporan Fellow. In August of 2012, Professor Day also received the honorary title of Professor Extraordinaire from the Department of Inclusive Education, University of South Africa. In 2017, he was elected as Fellow of Royal Society of Canada, the most prestigious award for an academic scholar. He also received the 2016 Whitworth Award of Educational Research for the Canadian Education Association, awarded to the Canadian scholar whose research and scholarship have helped shape Canadian national education policy and practice. He is the 2019 Paulo Freire Democratic Project Chapman University U.S. Social Justice Award winner. Professor Day has 35 books and over 70 refereed journal articles to his credit. Finally, in June 2007, Professor Day was installed as a traditional chief in Ghana, specifically as the Jaseheni of the town of Asokore, Koforidua, in the New Jabin traditional area of Ghana. His full name is Nana Edusei Sefa Chunebua. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Nana Edusei Sefa Chunebua. But before he starts, the topic I forgot, and I apologize for that, that the theme for the forum, as you all already know, is Education in Ghana, laying foundation for achievement. And the topic that he's going to be speaking on is improving the education system in Ghana and Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Nana Edusei Sefa Chunebua.
Thank you, Eugene. I just want to share a PowerPoint. So bear with me. I'm just going to.
And you have 30 minutes, sir.
Oh, okay. Let me know if you see it. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. So I want to begin by recognizing the land where we are, wherever we are, the land being so important. And also for me as a chief, right? The teachings of the land is very, very important, and also the sacrifices that we've made to be on this land and how we pass it on to our children and those coming after us. But also to recognize the presence of our elders and ancestors in any dialogue, in any conversation that we have. What I want to do today is more to have a conversation, but a very provocative one. And I think some of the things just came up listening to Derek, Taddy, and Nicholas on the question of language, the question of identity, and how to find the extent to which our school system, right? I'm not someone who uses the word crisis easily, right? But I think when it comes to our educational system, the word crisis is, I think, it's apropos. It's something that we can use. And I heard one of you talked about bankrupt. Yeah, the system is bankrupt, no matter how you carry it is. And this is why we have to search for new educational features, not just for Ghana, but for Africa in that context. But I want to share, because I also believe in knowing what people can do for themselves, right? So I want to share some stories which speak to local creativity and resourcefulness. And I think it's very, very important for us to recognize what people are doing for themselves. Ghanaians are not just a cap in hand begging. Some hardworking teachers, some hardworking parents, and some hardworking students who are making the best that they can with the circumstances. And I remember I go to Ghana every year. In fact, I spent 6 months here and 6 months there for the past 12 years, right? And I remember when for example, what I see when I go, right? I see some teachers who are very, very committed, and we even offer classes without a fee. And I'll come back to the question of private education, because many of you have said it, right, later. But we do have that instances where some teachers will do it even without a fee. I know that, in fact, in my house, for example, when I go home, some of the kids, right, who may not have, unfortunately, may not have electricity in their homes, will come to my backyard, right, because there's a light there in the big compound and steady. And I think this in itself was, when I saw it, was very, very productive. And showed up how people are using their own creativity. I also know parents who would visit the schools, right, talk to teachers in school administrators about what they think is wrong in the system. And of course, local chiefs and elders, once in a while, we also visit the schools to acquaint ourselves with what the schools are doing, right? But then there's also the individual acts of generosity. I think some of you, I'm sure, have been part of it, where you think you have to pay back a bit, and people are doing that. So I just want to put that in a broader context before any of critique that we offer, right, in that extent, right? I think the general context of the education system, whether we are looking at primary, we are looking at tertiary and the university levels, right? I think the question of decentralization, particularly in the primary and middle, it was intended to get structural changes in place that will get resources to the ground and make local stakeholders manage their own schooling and their own education. But we have to ask what extent, right, that has really worked in practice. And then this whole thing about where you see the international financial community talk about where we need to have education for all, the goals. But they do exist only in theory, not in practice. And you see it when you look at critically. I mean, those of us who have done some work, and I've done some work around the capitation grant scheme, for example, when you see the resource distribution and location, and in fact, something that we are all familiar with, even the school feeding program, the inadequacies of the school feeding program, the inequities that are built into it, and then something that you all said, which is most of who spoke, the private-public split in education. And this emerges from the attempt to marketize education. So who has the money will send their kids to the private schools, and even teachers are encouraged to actually go and teach in the private schools because they do get more money than when they are in the public school system. But what happens is that anytime you have this marketization, as Kenway talks about, when you have this marketization of education, what happens is that public schooling is given a short shift, a short change in the process, right? So moving to specific challenges in the local context, right? I think one of the things which is very, very clear is the high cost of education, right? Education is no longer a question of a right. It's become more of a privilege, right? But we need to make education a right, right? And it shouldn't be determined by who has the means, who has the resources. But we are moving more and more to that. The problem with the high cost education is that people are not able to combine the rights and the responsibilities. I think if you believe that you have a right to education, then there are responsibilities that come with it. But where you think it's become a privilege, right? Because now those who can afford it go, right? You can't talk about responsibilities for those people because they think they dip into their pockets to make it possible, right? Then also the whole question of school infrastructure, right? The poor conditions of the school buildings, sometimes overcrowded classrooms, the lack of furniture, even blackboard without a chalk, teachers working with that. And these are not making a big deal out of nothing. These are real cases. I have research, I've done research in the Eastern, I've done research in the Central, right? The school system, it's a fact, right? And also when we look at teaching, reading materials, and then it's the shortages around that, right? To what extent when teachers will tell you, whether it's in elementary school, teachers will tell you that we don't have the manual, the textbooks to work with, right? And this is an issue. And with the school feeding program, also the quality of the meals, right? The school, and this is something which is very, very important. It's not enough to say, okay, we are providing a school feeding program. We also have to make sure the quality of the meals, because it has impact on nutrition of the learner. If the learner is not healthy, they are not going to engage what the teacher is teaching in the classroom, right? So the quality of the meals is also. And then of course, the question of school discipline. Right, school discipline. I was just reading some dissertation that was sent to me from University of Development Studies in Tamale. These were MPhil and doctoral dissertations, and some of them were speaking about the whole question of school discipline around the question of, for example, with the internet, right? How students are now moving into where they can make money so quickly, right? And that is in fact, it's affecting education achievement because they spend more time on the internet. Trying to resource quick money than they do on that. And that is a question of school. And of course, the salaries and conditions of service for teachers. Teachers cannot do much if they also have to go and do 3 or 4 jobs to do their work. And that's something that needs to be addressed, right? So the salaries and the conditions of service for these teachers is so poor, right? That, I mean, I can tell you so many stories, and I'm sure you all hear these stories. I remember one time being home, a market woman told me, not even actually, it was a teacher who told me that she went to the market to buy tomatoes, and then she was bargaining the price. And the market woman said, "Are you a teacher?" Right? Just to tell you, basically to show you about the sort of the salaries and the conditions, and how that nature, there's a narrative, a very powerful narrative that the community consumes around the work of being a teacher, right? And then of course, questions about large classroom sizes, right? How can you be an effective educator, effective pedagogue, when you have large classroom sizes that you can't devote attention to all your students? That's an issue. And then the question of the availability of skilled teachers, the trained teachers, right? There are some schools in the rural areas where the teachers who are there are not skilled, trained teachers, they're not professional teachers, because they are trying to find ways to provide this education, right? I need to be frank and speak about these issues. And then sometimes what happens is that this is not a big issue, but it is an issue of significance, where in some areas you see teachers who use children for household chores, right? And it reminds me, goes way, way back. I was just writing an introduction to a book I'm writing now, where I remember going to school in Ghana in the early primary school. I was almost near the top of the class in the exam, but there was only one left. It was the handicraft. And we had to submit something for a handicraft. Now I brought a basket, and I got a low mark for that. The student who was second close to me brought a cat to school, and he got a higher mark. And my dad was so furious that how can you call a cat a handicraft, right? But because the teacher was getting access to the cat, he gave him a higher mark. And the argument the teacher would use was that, oh no, the child reared the cat in the household, so that's a good work that he did, right? But also, when we talk about, we talk about the high cost of education, the PTA and incidental fees. People talk about schooling is free now. Free, it's not free. I think parents have to dip in, right? Whether it's even doing extra classes for their students. There are certain times when for registration, they have to pay for some registration extra classes by teacher fees to use for school facilities, which are more and more happening in some contexts. And of course, the poor school attendance leading to truancy and the dropouts, which connect to the discipline issue that I talked about. And then the question of the curriculum adequacy and relevance. the question of language is so important, right? And I'm glad that I think it was Nicholas who was speaking about it, or Derek, right? They look, how we are able to use our indigenous languages to teach our kids, right? It used to be in the 60s, the whole argument that, well, there are so many languages, so what do we teach, right? That's a very colonial mentality argument, right? We have to teach indigenous languages in the classroom. And so as was rightly said, we are having this conversation in the colonizers' language. And how do we engage in these conversations when, for example, we have to think through our indigenous language and move it into the English language, the limitations and the shortcomings of that, right? And then the question of the curriculum adequacy and relevance also has to do with what schools are teaching, right? We all have horror stories to tell, right? Growing up in Ghana, going to elementary school, right? I learned more about the rivers and the waterfalls in Canada and the US, Victoria waterfalls, than the rivers in my own village, where my mother caught the fish where I ate, right? And this is an issue that it still continues. The colonizing aspect of education, how we move away from that. We know more about other people's communities than they. Look at the Chinese, look at the Asians. They start with the local context, right? And we still have to deal with this. And of course, the impact that this has is on the reading, writing, and mathematics and science, right? That we have some students who go through the system and cannot even put a sentence together, even when they get into the university. It's a fact, right? And we have to acknowledge this and be able to address that. So how do you respond to some of these challenges in the post-colonial context, right? And I just want to throw some ideas there, right? I think if we believe that education and development are connected, right? If we believe that education and development are connected, then we have to ask questions about what type of education are we talking about? What is the model of development we want to pursue? Do we want to pursue development that simply insert us into the global economy, but then our own communities are not able to survive, right? And that has implications about what our leaders do. How do we use local cultural resource knowledge, African indigeneity, to address our problems and not look elsewhere, right? And these are issues that we have to deal with. And then we have to address the question of education competing with the budgets, right? We seem to spend more on importation of luxury cars than we spend on teachers and the classrooms, right? And we need to be very, very frank about it. I think the whole question of prioritization, how our leaders prioritize resources, is something that we need to deal with in that. And then also the question around, we talk about universal primary education, which is supposed to be free. There's a tension around that, right? So are we going to devote the resources more to the universal primary education? And then what about the question of the tertiary? What is going to be the impact, particularly in the higher tertiary, the universities and that? So there's always this tension where we devote the resources to, and we have to find a neat balance, right? I don't believe that. I think we can just simply, because I think we need to find a balance that ensures that, yes, there's universal primary education, but also we pay attention to our tertiary institution. Because what's the point when you educate somebody in the primary school, but they can't get access into the university and that? So there must be that neat balance. And I think we need to pay some attention also to vocalization and technical training as opposed to the academic programs. I'm not saying the academic programs are bad. I think we all made from that, right? But I think we need to pay attention more to the hands-on, which actually is what allow communities to survive, right? So we may have University of Science and Technology, but how is that science and technology local? How are we paying attention to provide technical skills and knowledge and science that we can identify with, that we can deal with in our communities? And I think that's also very important for us right now. And then Tadi was saying that this political will to implement genuine bottom-up educational reforms. Sometimes we have the reforms, but they only exist on the books. We don't have the courage, right? And you look at Ghana's history, right? There are so many reforms that have been on the books. Governments come and they change. New governments have their new policy, right? And this creates a sort of a liability, right? And I think when you have governments come and change reforms that are on the books, it doesn't make for a sustaining system. All what it does is we seem to be reinventing the wheel every now and then, and that is a problem. And of course, the whole issue about neoliberalism and the education agenda. We've all talked about the question of education that is being subverted to serve the needs of the labor market and the global economy. right? The whole question of assessing the marketization of education, where now private schools are better equipped than public schools. So most the wealthy want to send their kids to the private schools, but even those who are poor, right, will strive to try and get their kids into these private schools. And that's what's said, right? For most of these private schools, and I'm not saying all, there are a number of them that are driven not because they want to provide education, they want to make money, right? And that's a fact, they want to make money. And then we need to move away from this techno fix, right? That somehow we think that when we are being technical, somehow we solve all the problems. Some of the problems call for a critical dialogues among parents, communities, and teachers who are on the ground to find solutions, and not somebody like the policy analyst, the technician, the technicalist sitting in the office providing these solutions to the problem. How do we have conversations in the ground with the teachers, with the educators, with the students themselves, rather than those working in this office? And how do we strive a balance between that? And then addressing the standardization recipes, as the talks about. It's not only in North America. This is also in Ghana, right? With this idea that we think one size fits all. One size fits all, right? They are a learner. Well, but the learners, right? When every classroom in Ghana, in the elementary school, the learners they have gender, they have ethnicity, they come from different classes, right? And they have different sexuality, and I think that question of difference is very, very important. It used to be in the post-colonial education, we thought, oh, we are all Ghanaians, right? And the education was more for national integration. This was good, but we can't sweep the differences under the carpet. We have to recognize the differences that are structured along the lines of ethnicity, gender, class, and so forth, and be able to deal with that, so that the idea that one size fits all is interrupted. And also, of course, the mushrooming of private schooling and the impact on public schooling. You know, I remember in one of the conversations, about 3 times I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, Nana, why don't you form a school, build a school?" And I say, "Why?" They say, "Oh, you being a professor, if you have this private school, people will come, right?" And I'm saying, no, I'm not going to do it if it's more you are looking at, they are not talking about how it will provide education. They think I'll make money from it, right? That's the mentality. And this mentality that I guess, and I'm saying there may be exceptions, right? But there's a problem that I think we need to deal with. And then the question of the curricular, pedagogic insertion and relevance. The question of the curriculum, how do we construct the curriculum? Who are part of the construction of the curriculum? How do we get local communities involved, the elders, the teachers, the students themselves making the curriculum? And how does the curriculum speak to the relevance of local culture, right? And our indigenous knowledges. I think the question of culture, the question of language, right, all fall here. The relevance, right? And the difficulty of not doing that, and the impact and the implications of not doing that. And then the question of educational resources, putting more resources in areas of curriculum development, text, and staffing issues. Because there's a lot of rotation among teachers. Because the service of conditions are poor, there's a high turn rate. Some go in there and after a time they leave, right? They leave. And then the whole area of professionalism, how do we train these teachers, and the staff development that comes with that. Looking critically at this remuneration, the payment of salaries to teachers, and improving that, because it's working conditions. Otherwise, the teachers, right, would be spending more time elsewhere, right? If a teacher has to spend more time getting transportation to the school, to the elementary school, what do you think they will come to the school and spend all their time about teaching the kid? They are going to worry about how am I going to get home after class, and that, or how am I going to feed myself, and then we also see teachers engaging in private employment in the private sector in addition to their teaching, whether they do it in the NGOs, in the government sectors, where salaries are more competitive. So there are issues that I think we need to deal with in terms of the educational delivery, right? The educational delivery in this context. And of course, I think paying attention to the physical infrastructure development, the physical infrastructure in terms of space, the classrooms. As I said earlier on, a lot of the classrooms are very deteriorating conditions, right? And I think we need to pay attention to that. We also need to pay attention to, there was, at one time you saw the move towards science education, but this science education were not equipped. The schools were not equipped with the labs, the laboratories to ensure that science education. So on the one hand, we recognize that science education is very, very important, but we don't provide the labs, the laboratories and equipment in the laboratories to make it very, possible. In fact, in my research at one point, when we wrote the book, Schooling and Difference in Ghana, right? What we saw was that for once we were addressing the question of gender, where the girls were doing very well in science education. But then it turned around after a time because we didn't have the lab and the resources to basically support the achievements that were being made in science education, the question of the gender gap that was being closed in that. And of course, the challenges of equity and diversity, which is beyond access, right? I think, yes, we need to talk about how students are able to access the school, how they're able to go into the classroom, right, and make that possible. But I think the question of access is also leading to questions of equitability, right? So it's not simply making education accessible, it's also making it equitable so that it's fairly distributed in our communities, and that we don't have this class distinction, we don't have this ethnic, and then also sometimes regional and sectoral distinctions as we see it in that context, right? I'm trying to just run through a couple of things here because my time's almost run. But I think the question of inclusion, right? I just wanted to raise the question of inclusion, where I think if you're going to talk about inclusion as a very important aspect of how we think about the future, then we have to see inclusion as a question of power. It's not simply saying, well, we want to bring people who have disabilities. Inclusion is about power. That's the question. So questions of the gender, the class, this are all our approach to inclusive education, and not just simple that students with disabilities. We need to have a broad definition of that. Also, Africanization, the whole project of Africa, what does it mean, right? And it's our approach. It's not an event, but it's where we're going to make understanding of Africanness very central to the way we teach our students, the way we teach the learner of today, which is teaching in relation to history, culture, identities, and politics. So placing Africa at the center of the educational system, as I said, and teaching history as a totality of the lived experience. Then indigenization, right? Indigenization, to pay attention also to the whole area of indigenization. We have a whole debate. When Kwame Nkrumah set up the University of Development Studies, it was this idea of indigenization, right? That we want to talk about development from our indigenous resources and that. But you have to ask yourself, to what extent is this being pursued? To what extent is this indigenization? And some of the harsh critics about African indigeneity sometimes tend to be you and I, right? Because we are so Eurocentric in our ways of thought that we ask, what is this indigeneity, as if it's something which is past, right? But it's about going back and fetch that is which is relevant and help our students deal with it in that. Because what indigenization does is that it interrupts this idea that Europe is the advent of human history. The world began with Europe. We have to look at it that colonialism is not our only story. We have African indigeneity that really help us to think through our parents, our forefathers and mothers, to think through solutions, and we have to retap that also. Then of course, decolonizing education, which we talk about, right? I think to me, to see it as subverting what we have now. Our education needs to subvert what we have now, because what we have now is not working, right? It's a bankrupt, and we have to decolonize it. And that means we have to think through and build it differently, using questions of relationships among the learners, the teachers, and educators and policymakers in that context. But that decolonization is developing a critical consciousness of the learner. So right from the beginning, the elementary school, the learner sees herself as, what does it mean to be a Ghanaian? What does it mean to be a Ghanaian? What does it mean to be an African? What does it mean to be in the school system, right? Because then they bring this sense of place, history, and identity, culture, and memory to the way they talk about it. And I think most of us, we know Ngugi Atingo talks about this in his going to school in Kenya, and breaking away some of the colonial hierarchies, right? Our school system is so hierarchical, right? It's so hierarchical. And that in itself is a problem, right? I think we can have respect, but respect not necessarily based on simply a hierarchy. It's people recognizing that we have responsibilities and we are doing it, and that. And I think, to me, the whole project of decolonization, Molefi Asante talks about when he says, it's not simply de-Westernizing, but it's rather a total reassertion of Ghana or say Africa at the center of knowledge discovery, interrogation, validation, and dissemination in there. So to conclude, I think we need to search for new educational futurity for Ghana. And it will not happen by chance. It has to be imperative. We have to work for it. I always believe that a lot has happened, but not a lot has changed. We seem to be going in circles. right? A lot has happened, but not a lot has changed. We seem to be going in circles, circular, right? And we need to really be serious about it. That means we reframe inclusive decolonial African education and the work that is required to equip our learners to be able to deal with it. That sometimes we all have our colonial investments, and we need to move away from these colonial investments, and that we build and sustain communities. Schooling is about communities. It's about building communities. So when we talk about schooling, it's not who has the money, who has the resources, but it's about how people think about themselves in relation with others, what they see as responsibilities to the country, to the nation, their communities, and that is building those relationships. And we have to be careful about what has been called this race to internationalization of education. Everybody wants to jump in there. We want to be part of the international community. But we have to look at local needs and aspirations first, the context and the relevance, and use that, right? And I think this is where you and I, those of us who are in the diaspora, we have our responsibilities and obligations. To whom more is given, much is expected. We need to see how we can continue to redouble our efforts to help our school system in Ghana. I think this is very, very important. I think PAG, I'm sure PAG is looking at some of these issues about how those of us in the diaspora are meeting our obligations and responsibilities. And I think one of the things that my current work is around how do we bring our elders into the school system to assist in the education of our youth. It helps to address the questions of respect, the lack of discipline in the schools, and how do we bring these elders. And finally, I think to me, the approach that we have to look at, our learners don't go to school to simply hide in the school. They must go to school to liberate themselves, to liberate their minds, and to think critically about what it means to be a learner, what it means to be a Ghanaian, what it means to be an African in this context. I'm sorry I went on too long, and thank you, Asante Sana.
You have time. You still have time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So, but let me So just let me then go to addressing the internationalization of education that serves local needs and aspirations. I think this you know, it's the way it plays out, right? The way it plays out is that we are having a system in place that is more concerned about getting validation and legitimation from the global community than seeking validation and legitimation from our own communities, right? And that itself is a problem. I think, yes, we can build from the ground and then think about how we use our knowledge to connect with the outside, the global community. I think it's to me, it's where we start, the entry point into this conversation. On the question of, I think, the diasporic and African responsibilities, I know we all do it. I know Tadi and others, I'm sure all of you, we do it. So we are contributing our bit. We are contributing our bit to but I think we need to find ways, right?
Swala, can you mute? Sorry.
We need to find more ways to do that, right? I am amazed when I go to, and look, I can tell you two stories. Like I get, because, and I'm sure some of you are, you see, we do get dissertations, we do get papers to review for our colleagues on the continent, right? On Ghana and so forth, right? And you see, they are using literature that is so outdated, right? That is so outdated. You go to the schools, not only are the textbooks not there, the resources not there, but those that are there, there's no attempt to replenish and get the up-to-date resources, right? And I think we need to do that to address this farming, this book farming. And I think those of us in diaspora, we have a responsibility to do that. To what extent we can help address that. But also to support local development, professional development, where I think to what extent, for example, do we help educators, teachers, put their own knowledge on the textbook, right? And to support them in that, right? And I think some of us do it too also, where we are helping to encourage local publishing from educators who are on the ground. For the most part, you see, when you look at it critically, because they are there, right? They know more than we who are in the diaspora, right? And how we can coordinate with them, work with them to get these ideas down so that they can, because when we do it, we also benefit from it. Anybody who knows about mentorship, right? That mentorship is a two-way, right? How we mentor the local teachers, the local scholars who are on the ground, we benefit because we also learn from them. So that we know that we are grounded. When we speak, we are grounded. We are in with them. To me. And then the whole question about the role of elders in the school system, right? It used to be that when we talk about the school wasn't a physical space. The school was everywhere, right? Education wasn't in the classroom. In fact, a colleague of mine wrote this book, Too Much Schooling, Too Little Education. And that means what he was trying to get at is that what is happening is that there's too much technocracy around education, rather than education being something which is lifelong. It goes on in the communities. You don't get it simply in the classroom. And we need to do that. And I think one way to do that is to find a place for our elders in the school system, because we know in pre-colonial education, our elders had a role, right? So we interrupt and disturb the professionalization of education, where we only allocate it to only the trained teacher who has gone through the teacher training, who does it. I think elders have a role to assist our teachers in the school system. We must find ways to bring that, because not only can they teach in terms of questions about the environment, teach about responsibility, teach about community building, but also address issues of discipline, right? The discipline that I think is very, very important in that context. I think if you want to talk about Africanization, how can you talk about Africanization? How can you talk about indigenization, right? Without finding a role for local community knowledge, without finding a role for our elders into the system. This is a new reframing of the educational system, where rather than see the paradigm as internationalization, we see the paradigm more as starting from where we are at, and then we build up. And that has to start right from the kindergarten, the basic, the primary level. This is not an issue for the university level. It's too late if you're going to look at it at the university. It has to start right from the local communities, elementary level, to have this entry gaze, which is to say we talk about our local context than simply saying that, okay, we teach them because they want to be part of the global community. Of course, it's very important they want to be part of the local community. And I think to me, the global community, but I think to me, on the question of the language, right, it is very, very critical in how we come to this Africanization and indigenization, the question of the language. Language is such a huge issue. It's such a huge issue that it has to be addressed. Look, when some of our Pan-Africanist leaders, at some point we're talking about every African learner must know one African language. And this is why the move by people like Nkrumah Kenyatta and so was about Kiswahili, because the debate was, oh, well, we have so many languages, which one? And the argument was that, well, we don't teach the language of the dominant. So you won't say because the Ashantis, we teach an Ashanti or a Kan. Let's teach the language of the minority, and we teach it to all the kids, so that at least they can be proud and say, I know an African language. I know one African language, which is universal for all our learners, right? And I think we need to pay attention to that. Ghana has to come to terms with that. It cannot just be simply like, oh, we have one language class in the school system, so people go. I think it has to be infused, and I'm glad that if it was Derek who was talking about how the one teaching mathematics, using the local language to teach it, right? Because I think when you use the local language to teach it, the students understand it more, right? Than when we have to use these concepts and that to address these issues, right? And deal with that. So I think I'm just going to stop here, because maybe there will be some questions and we can engage in a dialogue, because I think there's so much expertise in the room, and I want people to chime in on some of the issues and that. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Professor Day. And you have given us a lot to think about, a lot to ponder, and a lot to work on. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for questions.
Yeah, questions and contributions.
And contributions, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll come first, because most of the things that you said here are things that personally I think about all the time. Okay, how do we even start schooling from the preschool level? Preschoolers go to school at 4 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, parents cannot send their children to a dilapidated school, or matter of fact, we don't even have any structures in the neighborhoods. Okay, so when you talk about decentralization, we have to be able to build. My question is, okay, this is something we want to do around the country.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I'm thinking about is, okay, we need to build schools around the country, from elementary and kindergarten. I mean, preschool and kindergarten on up. How do we accomplish this? My suggestion, what I think to myself is that we need to hire a million volunteers, because this is something that we're going to do around the country. You know, most of our schools are from 1900s or one. So how do we establish a preschool system to compete or even drive away the private school system dominating the education from that foundation, from that level? How does the government, do something like that, implement something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this is how we have to be creative and imaginative about it, right? We have to use our creativity and resourcefulness. I think this way, to me, I think, yes, we will need the teachers, but I think it's also about how we define the teachers, right? I talked about the question of the elders, right? So I think, to me, for example, if you want to talk about this kindergarten level, right, the preschool, right, how can we tap into our elders who are in the communities and use them as part of that? That would mean a way of thinking where we can also remunerate these elders so they don't go and give their services for free, but they are also being paid for that, right? And that. So it's a whole framing, right, of education and putting minds to the task of how we do it, right? So while we talk about we need the teachers, right, we have to define the teacher broadly. So we see the elder in the communities, parents, right, from the parents as going to be part of the people who will be in this preschooling and helping in the education of the students. The question of the building, right? It gets to the question of resources, right? And how we prioritize. If we believe that education is very, very important to national development, then our priorities have to be rearranged, right? Where we don't get into the zone where we think we spend more money actually importing luxury cars than we spend more money on education, right? I think, to me, health and education are two critical areas of every developing nation. And we put our money where our mouth is, right?
Yeah.
George, I think this has been a very powerful presentation that you've given. It's actually integrated a lot of things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And from my professional perspective, I think that the first 5 years of a child's life are absolutely critical in setting a trajectory for what that person is going to be. And so the early childhood education piece is so important. And like I said earlier, in the 1960 revision in Nkrumah's government, it was clear that education should start in the local language.
Right.
Because education is not only in the school, education is in the home.
Yeah.
So in the home, they are educating their children in the local language, and there has to be continuity for the first, 5 years or so. Then after that, the world comes to a child anyway.
Yes.
Then English comes in or any other language comes in. So I think that the question of priorities is so important. I mean, we have a heritage fund, with the oil revenue, which should be much more than what we get anyway.
Yes.
But it has, education, well, in this government, of course, they have thrown the money at a politically motivated, process of wide-scale access without attention to quality. I think this is what the free SHS has done, really. So everybody just moves on, and the children have a school experience, but are they educated?
Yeah.
That's, this is what's happening in the country.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think I like your idea about schooling. The world comes to the learner anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, it comes to the learner. And I think, sometimes, what has happened, the impact, right, that this does is that we have a school system in place where even students are made to shun their own culture, their own language.
There are children in Ghana who do not speak a local language.
Yeah.
I meet them all the time.
Yeah.
They are being taught English at home. And they think it's nice. They think it's great. They think it's a sign of class.
Yeah.
Yes, that they do not speak local language.
Yeah.
And they speak English that an Englishman will run away from, but they are very proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. No. I mean, and to give you, we all have our personal stories, right? I mean, I remember there was an incident. I was supposed to speak to your youth, and some of the others came to me and said, Nana, you know what some of the youth were saying? They said they wanted to hear you speak English, so maybe you tell them your Canadian accent. And I tell them, I'm sorry, I don't have any Canadian accent. Right? I'm going to speak to you. But is that you're right? I mean, that's the issue, right? Yeah. And Nicholas wants, Derek wants to get in. Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Who have their hands up?
You know, there is this important thing usually we overlook, and as a teacher, I dare to say this: the teacher training colleges or colleges of education. The recruitment method is very important, because at the moment, okay, in my time, for instance, the idea was when you try to get into the university and you don't get a chance, try the training college. You see, so some of the teachers in the system do not really know how to impart the knowledge, be them trained or not. And you know, there was this time I was teaching a concept on cones, like number of sides, edges, and all. And I saw that the textbook that I was using had made a mistake. And the teachers have been using this textbook all along. And the children were arguing with me because a different teacher came to teach a different thing. I'm saying a different thing. So I had to Google, get the right information, and show it to them to prove to them that what I'm saying is right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I had to call the person who wrote the book, and he made the changes in the next edition. You know, teachers teach what is in the book. They don't research to find out if it is right or wrong.
Yeah.
Because they themselves do not know what they are teaching. Some of them, excuse me to say it, I'm a teacher, but I'll be frank. You know, we should have a system where people will strive to enter the training college or the college of education with good grades. We know we have people who are really, who really have what it takes to teach, not someone who enters because he needs somewhere to be. So we have a system where the teachers are there because they want to be there. They want to have means to survive, but not because they have what it takes to teach. It's a fact. I'm in the field, and it's a bitter truth, but I really have to say it. It's also a problem to what the children are facing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very important. Do you have a response, Professor Day?
No, I agree with what
Good afternoon.
Let me say this. Those young men and ladies who are on this forum,
been texting each other, isn't it?
Brother Young, can you mute, please?
I'm fine. How are you, Linda?
Brother Young, please mute.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. So Professor Olsen has an article titled "The Danger of Falling Standards." Just exactly what you're saying, Derek Makari. Please read it, and I encourage a lot of you to read it, as well as the demise of public education in Ghana. That was published March 1st, 2019. Please read it. The young men and women on this forum. You will get a lot from that. Thank you.
Constance wants to speak.
Constance, yes. I think Nicholas before Constance. Nicholas' hands was up, and then
I would like to cede my position to Constance first. I'll come
okay.
up.
All right. Thank you very much for being a gentleman. Constance, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Prof said. You know, I think the reason why most of the time there's poor quality in the education at the primary level is because of our cultural way of doing things or our cultural orientation. Usually we have a lot of...
You muted yourself. Somebody
People do not really appreciate children that much. And so sometimes when a child wants to do something, you always say, you're a child, you're a child, you're a child. And these are some of the things that have actually entered into the various sectors in Ghana. That is why most people do not even pay a lot of attention on kids. And this has reflected in the educational system in Ghana.
Yeah.
In my experience as a teacher some time ago, I also realized that most schools in Ghana do not have a counseling section. And so the children do not even have any means of getting inspiration and advice for them to move forward in education. In one of my experience, I spoke with one girl, and then there were only 3 in the class, 2 boys and a girl. And then I was asking her about her education, how does she see learning? And she said, oh, I'm always said in class, the boys are first and second. And I asked her why. She said she doesn't like mathematics. So I asked her, why doesn't she like mathematics? She said it's difficult. And I asked her who told her it's difficult. She said people say it, and then she also hears it. And so I have to sit her down and then explain to her why she needs to learn mathematics. I told her mathematics will help her to be able to know how to save money, know how to account for things. And so that is the reason why she needs to learn mathematics. If she doesn't learn mathematics, she will lose her money. Since then, this girl decided to learn mathematics. And you know that immediately I finished teaching that class for just a month, she came first in her class. And one other thing I've also realized with the Ghana educational system is that most of the time we do not run a lot of trainings for the teachers. And so most of the teachers do not actually appreciate what they are doing for the children. I think these are some of the things that we need to consider. In 2018, the Human Capital Index reports by the World Bank says in 18 years' time, 56% of Ghana's human capital will go waste due to poor quality of Ghana's educational system. And so I think we need to set up, especially with the primary levels. These are things that if we are able to improve the primary level, I don't think it will be difficult for the children to even advance at the tertiary and advanced levels.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I agree with that. I think it has to start from right from the start, right? It has to start right from the start. And I think the point we're making about the relationship between culture, cultural values, and the questions of quality education, right? I think it's also very, very important. I just want to highlight, I think part of the problem, as I see it, is more about cultural estrangement, right? How you become estranged from the true meaning and values of our culture, right? I think you hear sometimes we talk about, oh, our culture doesn't allow kids to question, right? And they read it in that negative sense, right? Looking at it in terms of what is the context, how that is being said, right? What is the import behind that, right? And I think we have to be able to talk about the way to look at, no culture is immune to criticism, right? We have to look critically at our culture, but no culture is also static, right? No culture is static. I think culture moves through the time, and how we are able to merge that, I think becomes very, very important. When you have learners who have no sense of the teachings of their cultures, right, that becomes a problem, because they can misapply anything that they hear in it and use it to serve their very selfish and interest rather than the community. I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, I remember someone would tell me, look, we're not within our cultures, we don't have any concept of individual, but then Europeans came and then they brought this individual. I said, no. We've always had a concept of individual, but there's a distinction between the competitive individual and the cooperative individual. Within our cultures, we had a concept of the individual, but it was a cooperative individual, as opposed to the individual who thinks the whole world is after him or her, and is trying to hide away from that. And that is a product of Western modernity, right? And that, but I think we have to look at it in terms of how our concept of individual was more about building communities, right? Because the community is a sea of individuals in that sense.
Thank you. We'll have Brother Nicholas, and then Cynthia, please stand by. You'll be next, and then James after Cynthia. Thank you.
Let me say I find the presentation of Nana very refreshing, having recently engaged on education sector issues. I must say that it is quite a relief to hear such well-informed, well-researched presentation. The challenge that we face, as far as I'm concerned, and engaging with education sector issues, it's no longer educational but political. The battle of ideas, the battle for power. Because I just cannot see how these profound ideas can be implemented without power and without winning hearts and minds as to the validity and the merit of this approach. The evidence is so clear out there, but you come into the mainstream education sector, government policy, and the level of discourse is frightening. You find that, okay, this is serious, because you have an international community that is willing to throw loads of money into an education sector. The World Bank is starting an education outcomes fund, and the education sector budget is the largest component of government spending annually, and 99% of it is spent on remuneration and wages and pensions. Yeah? Most of it is about paying people. It is not about infrastructure, it's not about capital expenditure, it's about just getting salaries and wages paid. The challenge we face, Nana, is how do we achieve some of these profound ideas without throwing overboard what exists? How are we going to adopt an incremental approach with that system that is so decadent, doesn't serve us, where children come and they specialize in how to get leaked question papers. Teachers collaborate in how to spread leaked question papers. They come out with distinctions and you don't know what they are distinct at. And the society is grinding into a halt.
Yeah.
So in my view, PAG has a huge task on its hands.
Yeah.
First, these ideas are profound, and it looks like there are several other people with similar ideas in the country, and we need to win the hearts and minds that, wait a minute, the tinkering of the system that is taking place is sending us nowhere. Secondly, we have to find a way of winning political power and sustaining it. The challenge that we face is that the entire orientation, the impact of colonization has left us so dependent on our thinking.
Right.
Yeah. We've lost confidence in our own ability, our own culture, our own indigenous institution, our own knowledge that existed before is constantly eroded. From medicine to almost everything, from science, everything we lost. So, Nana, how do we go forward?
Yeah.
When are you next back in Ghana?
Actually, normally I spend 6 months from November, January I'm in Ghana, and then from April to September I'm in Ghana. So 6 months here, 6 months there. But COVID, Mr. Coronavirus, that's all of us.
All shall pass. So let's look forward to when you come.
But I like to meet you. I like your ideas. I mean, it's listening to you is like listening to Tani, right? Look, I just want something that I think the question of the podcast power is very, very important, right? You need to have the power to implement whatever ideas that you have, right? And this is why how we focus on that, right? I know Nkrumah said a long time, get the power and everything falls from there, right? I think we need to, because leadership, right? Political leadership, if it's not directed towards genuinely transformative goals, can be very dangerous, right? And I think this is what we're seeing. And this is where I think, how do we understand development? Do we understand development simply as material, technological, right? I think to me, we must understand development as something which has a base, which is a spiritual. So the question of the mindset, right? How we think about what is the common cause, what is the common good, as opposed to how do we get from what we're doing, right? I think it's very, very important. Because the system set now, right, is built on what can I get, right?
Transactional. Everything is transactional.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Exactly.
Thank you. Cynthia, are you available? Are you ready? Hello, Cynthia. Cynthia, are you there?
She's on an old laptop.
All right.
I doubt you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Then good afternoon, good morning. I don't know where you all are located. But so my question is, if we want to assist in education, which means supporting some of the developments that'll answer the many problems that have been described here this morning. My problem is that if you just simply go to Ghana and you connect to some schools, usually you end up connecting to private schools in essence, because the public school system is difficult to get it. Well, I perceive it as difficult to know when and where to enter. So that was my question. If you wanted to be part of or initiate a support to the educational change that you all are talking about, where would you recommend entering or engaging the public school system? What might be effective?
I think I can speak to this a little bit, Cynthia. You know, very often at the local level, at the district level, it is possible to engage officials. So if you want to go to a particular place, I mean, trying to do it from the head office is always a problem. But at the district level, people are interested in finding local solutions. They're able to tell you what they need locally to impact the children. So if you pick a community, I've always had this idea in my mind, actually, that if everybody who lived in the diaspora, especially the Ghanaians born there, etc., just focused on one issue in their home district,
right,
the country will be turned around within 5 years. But I think that the answer to that is really local. You really have to engage the local, the district education officer. Those are the folks who are easier to deal with, even in the public system. They'll tell you what the constraints are, but then if they buy into, if you engage with them and they agree with what you want to do, they themselves will clear the path to help you to do it. I mean, that's what I have found. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Prof, do you have something?
No, I agree. And I think if we look at it, right, most of these local schools in our communities, right, they always ask for help, they ask for advice and that. So I think we can start from where we are at and build that. But I think if I heard Cynthia, we're also talking about what's the framework, right? And that's where Tadi's point about we look at it from the community, but also try to see if there are any connections that can be made, right, from the community level that create a structure that we have in place. And I'm sure PAG is thinking around this in terms of what is going to be appropriate entry point for to make an impact, right? But I also believe, right, I also believe in the power of ideas to bring about change, right? And I think, so if you have an organization such as this, right, the power of your ideas, and even thinking through outside the box, and that could be very productive in that. Yeah.
Thank you. Brother James?
Thank you.
Brother James? Brother James, your hand is up.
Listen to you all. I'm James Akulugo, Trosa Gyase, Bolga. I will give my position to Bismarck.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Bismarck. Yeah, thank you very much for a brilliant presentation. When it comes to education in Ghana, I'm always feeling very sad. Sad in the sense that if Ghana were a human being, it should have gone on retirement by now. So it is going on retirement at a time that it has not still reached its full potential. And when it wants to go to root, it will still have to go to the Chinese. If anyone is feeling not well, you still need to fly out to the US. And every single thing that is considered important in the development of the country, we have to rely on people or other countries. So the question I've always asked is, what did we get wrong? And what is the plan that we, as a group that is determined to change the status quo and to ensure that the next 60 years, Ghana will not be where it is? What is the plan? What is the strategic plan that we have? Now, I am also a teacher by profession. And when it comes to infrastructure, it is very, very, very serious. I once cited a report by Africa Infrastructure Country Diagnostic Report that stated that Ghana needed to be spending $2.3 billion US annually for 10 or 20 years to be able to address its infrastructural gap. I consider this to be true because as a teacher, a classroom that is supposed to take about 35 to 40 students, you take 70 to 80 students. So you give an exercise and you are unable to effectively monitor to know whether or not the students are getting it right. So this is something that we really need to look at it critically, because somebody once said that if you want to destroy a country, you don't need bombs. Just target its education and everything, you will get it destroyed. So education is really a pillar. And if we are talking about problems of education, the northern part of the country is west. I cited a report by UNDP in 2018 that stated that they just took mathematics, English, and science. And they saw that students in Greater Accra region perform 4 times better than all students in the northern part of the country. And we are all saying by 2030, we want to achieve quality education as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the song is, we are leaving nobody behind. Until we get it right, probably through our group, taking over this country to form a government, I think 60 years time, we'll come back and lament or cry the very cry we are crying now. Thank you very much.
Bismarck, that is so profound, and I mean, I have no words to describe what you're saying. A response from the floor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the point about the plan, I think it's been said here, right? I think we need a plan in place, and it's a plan that is coordinated, right? So it's not just a plan that is for education, it's for health, and that they all have to be connected, right? These things are very, very connected. So I'm sure that if any approach we want to do, we must have the plan in place and coordinate it in a way that is going to be effective, right? I think the big question was, where did we go wrong, right? I think he raised the question.
Again, I'm always a student of history. So I'll tell you that before the 1966 school, even textbooks were free. You know, the resources were free to students and parents. After the 66 school was when a government started asking Ghanaian community, parents, to start contributing from their pockets to the education system. And that was when things began to slide down. I mean, that is really where we made the wrong turn, because the government understood education to be its responsibility.
Yeah.
And that is also where the question that Bismarck brings about equity comes in. So it didn't matter whether you are in the north or whether you are in the coast. The government gave you the resources across the board. So a child, didn't matter where the child was born, they had the same opportunity. And that is where we went wrong. So, I mean, we are right. It has to be a political solution. It has to be an integrated solution. Not just education, everything else, but that is where we made the wrong turn.
Thank you. What I think running a little bit on against time or on time. I should say, so I would crave the indulgence of speakers when you're given the opportunity, be as brief as possible within 2 minutes. We have one gentleman, he's an engineer, and his hand is up. So we would invite Dr. Akwaku Ken, please. You have the floor. Dr. Akwaku, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Sola. Hey, thanks. I think we've had some very good inputs and ideas from the floor, and I just wanted to kind of add a little bit to it. One, there was a question of the entry point. Where do you enter when you get into the system in Ghana? Yeah. I think by and large, we need to step back and ask, what is our objective? What do we really want to achieve? That will determine where you can enter and be effective, you know, in addressing the reason for entry. So I just wanted to throw that in. There are various areas in a system you can enter, from which you can enter, but it depends on your objective. And I think Thad made a point that was very good. I mean, the local level is always a good starting point, but there are times you probably need to approach from the top, you know, where you probably did a lot more cloud. Now, you've talked about a few things. You've talked about the planning, and I think that's a very good thing. It's important we determine our strategic intent right now. Where you currently doing what we call the situational analysis, trying to look at where we are, you know, and how strong we are. You know, if it was business, you'd be doing what we call a first analysis and all those things, you know, just to see how to move the process forward. So that is good. We'll then do our gap analysis and see how we can identify solutions to the specific issues. I said specific because most of the time we discuss these issues and you realize it's all about the broad objectives. We don't drill things down to the smart level, you know, things that we can act on. So that is what I would say, that maybe along the line, let's start, you know, breaking the issues down to that level, you know, some specific things that we can take on and work on. Now, on the political side, I think we have, we know the role of people like the IEA and co in the political climate of Ghana. If you look back, let's say the past 15, 16 years, they've played some interesting roles, regardless of political parties that are in power. You see them being a bit effective, you know, in what they do. They coordinate things and all that. Maybe that is where we need to start from, in building the clout that is needed, you know, to make our voices heard, you know, if we want to make any inroads. So that is something we need to think about. We need to position ourselves as a force that has a specific objective, helping the educational system in Ghana realize its objective, the reason we exist. And maybe that is where we need to start from, devoid of, you know, other things that will make people see the group differently. So let's begin thinking about that. How do we get into the system organically? You know, build the appropriate affiliations with the appropriate institutions and start making the desired impact we need. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah. Can I just add something to what Ken is saying? Yeah, I think doing all that is very, very important. I also want to add the question of also understanding resistance, where you're going to meet resistance, because I think the system is built in such a way that because it benefits some, right, there's always going to be resistance. So one of the things I've seen is that anytime you want to talk about bringing change and you don't pay attention to where you're going to meet the resistance, that in itself is going to make your work even more difficult, right? And so as we plan, right, we should also identify the size, the sources, the areas of possible resistance, right? And also target those.
Prof. Olsen?
I was just saying that, I was just going to say that Ken's point is true. What PAG is doing is we are, through this process, we are gathering our resources to form, you know, particular special task forces on very specific issues. So we'll definitely get in touch with Ken as well, because that's what we're doing now is team building and sharing of knowledge. And out of that will come the practical work of putting together for going forward. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think that when it comes to some further topics that we will be discussing, Ken is a very good resource to rely on when it comes to engineering. He was one of the leading engineers in Valco, but he's now in the US here. And I have had the benefit of tapping into his knowledge because he lives close to 10 miles away from me. And I am a living proof. We will have Kwesi Bedu and then that's Somo. Kwesi Bedu, please.
Okay, I have a short question. Currently, we have DCs, right? Every region or every district have a district council. Okay, can we incorporate education officers? We have education officers in Accra who manage certain areas, or certain, my brothers and all that have been education officers before. But can we have our education officers work within the district offices?
They are district education officers. They've always been. They have always been. My father was a district education.
Are they stationed in the districts, or are they in Accra?
They are in the districts. Every local government has every arm of government at the local level. The point is, what do they do?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but they are there. The structure is there, but it's not functioning now as it used to. But the structure is there. Now the question is, do we think that structure actually still serves our current needs?
Right.
Those are the questions that we have to address. But you know, talking about engineering and science reminded me of something when Ken was talking. You know, where I live in Ampenyi, in the village, the school is just like every other basic school that I see. It is a rectangle. And it just always amazes me. We have engineering schools, we have architectural schools, and you would think that at some point, you know, these folks would get together with the educators and actually even design a physical structure that is conducive to a learning community.
Yeah.
So, you know, everything is just, and I don't think I have seen a school in the Western world that looks like the schools that were built for us from the colonial era, which we are still using. No, the schools look like prisons.
Yeah.
They don't look like schools. They don't look like a learning community where people, architecturally, it's not designed, you know, to bring together a cross-fertilization of knowledge between different ages of children. They are all segregated into their boxes. They go in, maybe they get together for recess and they come out. Even the architecture of the system is something we have to break everything down and rebuild.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said that.
Thank you. That's Summer. Kwesi Bedu, can you mute, please? That's Summer. That's Summer.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, you have the floor. Speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Please talk.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you. Please talk.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Derek Dachuma, speaking from Ghana. Well, I would like to make a little submission on the usage of our local languages in our various schools. Well, for me personally, I don't really have a problem with the usage of the English language for teaching and learning. Why am I saying that? Well, you see, currently English is becoming more or less like a global language, and then the idea is to make our peoples be conversant with it. So what happens if they are being taught with our local languages in their various classrooms? What will happen to them? So imagine, for instance, that maybe if they are being taught and they are not conversant with the English language and they find themselves probably in the UK or the US, how would they be able to communicate, or how would they be able to cope with the system? See, so So for me personally, I don't really have a problem. Yes, fine for better understanding. Yeah, for better understanding. Maybe for instance, once in a while or in the course of teaching, where the teacher feels that there's a need to probably use the local language at this point for better understanding. Why not? But not using the local language throughout the whole class, like the section, like for the whole class entirely. Like for me, I don't really think
your point. Let's respond. Thank you.
Let me
okay.
Let me maybe address it a little bit. First of all, it's not either or. Exactly. It is either and.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying English is not important, but it is at what point in a child's development do you introduce that second language? And that the child should start growing and developing in their own language. You know, and the scientific data is pretty clear. As a matter of fact, those of us who have more than one language tend to analyze things much better than unilingual people.
Yeah.
So we know this. I mean, in Canada, where George is, that is why the French people have persisted that their language should be taught everywhere. And Canada is better off for being bilingual than a unilingual language country. So, you know, really, it's not a question of either or. All are important. Your language, your own language is important. And also learning a language with which you communicate with the rest of the world is also important.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. Both have to occur. And the question is, at what point do you introduce the second language? And to the benefit of the child who is growing and being educated? That's all it is.
Yeah.
No, a Chinese man.
I agree. Can I
he's speaking Tree and Fanti when he's stealing the gold? No, he's Chinese.
No, I agree with Taddy, and I think I mean the research shows that if you're able to speak more than one language, actually, it enhances your education. There's no doubt about it.
Analytical ability.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but the other two issues also is with identity, right? Language is very, very important in constructing identity. When we talk about teaching our young learners to know who they are, right? What it means to be a Ghanaian, what it means to be an African, right? The question of identity and language, I think. But the third point is, to me, is the decolonizing part. That to me is what is built, the decolonizing part. And I'll give you an example here. And you know, one of the things that it has always amazed me, right? I see African leaders say come to Canada to visit here on state business, right? And so the Canadian Prime Minister will have a press conference with an African leader. And all the time, right, the African leaders would speak English. To the contrary, you see an Asian leader come, they speak English perfectly, but in the press conference, they speak their own language and get an interpreter. When in fact, they hear everything that has been said in English, they still speak their local and get an interpreter to do it. It's about decolonizing, right? We can't continue to just simply say, oh, we are in the global committee and therefore that's, no. That's not decolonizing. That's not decolonizing. In fact, even when they have to be forced to get the interpreter to interpret it, it's part of that decolonizing. Because when people are watching that scene, it's very, very powerful, right? They think there's this. I mean, when we have youth, I don't know, but in Toronto here, right, we have Ghanaian youth who came here when they were about 7, 10, 11. You meet them all of a sudden, they say they don't know any Ghanaian language. And they try to give you slangs, right? They give you slangs. Yeah. Come on, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that.
Thank you so much. I think Brother Kofi, if you can correct me, can we go above? It looks like we are very committed to this topic and we still have a lot.
Yeah, we can go.
Perfect. In that case,
a few more minutes.
In that case, I want to say that we have somebody from the UK. He taught mathematics in Ghana years ago, and he's been in the UK for over 10 years now. What do you have to say, Brother Mochia?
Thank you very much for the discussion. In fact, I'm very much Professor Dai, I really follow what you are and appreciate that.
The voice is not a little bit. We're not hearing it very well. Can you speak out a little bit, please?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. I mute the microphone. That's why. What I was saying is that I was following the discussion, and I thank Prof for the presentation. In terms of the language, it is very good to use our local language, as we are saying, and we are not going to abandon the other languages. Now, my daughter is in one of the schools here. They speak English, but she was forced also to learn German, which is very important as well. So if you have different languages also, it's going to help. Now, but our dialects, it will be very short to come to UK here and you meet some of our Ghanaian children. They cannot even speak one of our dialects.
Yeah.
Which is very, at times when we go to the program, you know, implement our children by even using our eyes to just talk to them. And then when you do that, they will just that in the point that no, you are trying to recommend the child. But what I'm saying is that let us use our Ghanaian language. If you are in the classroom teaching and the child doesn't English, you can switch into this explain it better and then carry on. Understand? I'm not saying that you should throw away the other languages, but we must also try as much as possible to let them also know and know the language very well. As Prof is saying, when you go to most places like this, they come and interpret it. If the Ghanaian language, a president comes and is speaking Twi, and somebody is interpreting it in their language for them, it is like selling our identity and culture to the people. So that is the little that I can talk about.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution. We are almost running up. Dr. Olsen?
Yes, sir.
I think Constance said she wanted to say something.
Constance?
Yeah.
Spoke already.
Oh, okay.
Constance spoke.
Constance?
She spoke already.
Okay.
Came back and spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said she wanted to add something.
Again.
You want to add something? Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to introduce you to an educational program that has been introduced to me by one of the leading educational services providers in the world. It's an educational program that actually
your internet, I'm sorry, your internet, I mean, we are not just hearing you at all.
Okay, then I will put it on the comment.
Chat.
Okay.
Please do.
Right.
Put it on the chat. Thank you so much.
And can I suggest that if we don't have your details, please, can you leave your details on the chat side, please?
Contact,
yeah. So that Kofi can pick it up, yeah. Please.
Thank you. Before I hand over to Chairman, Professor Olsen, Mr. Is it Sommer? That Sommer which is on the screen. We're just not riling over you, but the case is that early child education is very critical in the first 5 years, as we've heard. That is because of the affection with the parents, with the mother especially, and whatever they do at home, they do the same thing. And I'll give you an example so that you can laugh. My son was 3 years, and whenever I went to the bathroom, he would follow me, and I'll stand up and urinate. When I came to the US and left him with my mom, my wife would sit on the toilet bowl and urinate. So he started doing that because I wasn't there. So these are critical moments of the child's first 5 years. And I mean, this is a lay kindergarten example I'm giving you, but it speaks to the point that our Ghanaian languages or dialects are very critical in the development. Critical thinking is what we are talking about. So let's take it from the science aspect and then from our cultural aspect too. Over to you, Professor Olsen.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sola, Professor Sola. This is a very gratifying morning I think everybody who is on board will agree. It looks like since we started this series, we're up every 2 weeks, increasing our knowledge, bringing in more people. And as I said, this is team building. So Professor Day, you are welcome to the team.
Yeah.
Yes, because on this team, we baptized you by fire. So we brought you in. You've also shown us that you have been baptized and now we are confirmed. But this is a very, I think what George pointed out right at the beginning really stimulated a lot of discussion, that for any country really to develop, health and education are critical. Why? Because this is the fuel for developing human capital. And human capital is the major resource. Our resource is not the gold or the oil or whatever. It is the people. And it always reminds me, when people visit Ghana, there are two things I will say. Ghanaians complain a lot. And I have, of course, friends from other African countries who always say, we don't know why you people in Ghana complain so much, because you are way ahead of everybody else. But the point is that you don't want to say that because you are better than Nigeria, you are doing well. You don't, because you can see a failing state. And then you say, oh, because I'm better than them, I'm okay. That's not the point. We have to aspire to greatness. And that was actually the ethos of the founding of our country, aspiring to greatness, doing something that no other African colony had done before. That is what we were about. And that is what really should continue to drive us. So right now, our struggle is what? Freedom from neocolonialism. And no independent country has broken out of neocolonialism. We are thankful that our founder actually identified neocolonialism as a problem before he was thrown out. Mm-hmm. And so we know what our job is. And this is what our struggle is really about. We are really struggling to free our country again, because the people we thought we were free from still have us in their clutches. Mm-hmm. And to be able to understand this, education is so critical. We have to know ourselves. We have to understand our culture. We have to know our place in the world. And that is what we are really fighting for. So I'm very, very thankful to Professor Day for, at very short notice, agreeing to come. He has a very busy schedule, both as a traditional leader and as an academic. And we will definitely welcome you to join us in PAG as we work through our policy papers going forward to become a fully fledged political entity that seeks to move our country from the transactional economy to a transformative economy that will support the livelihood of Ghanaians so that we do better. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, as the moderator also, I want to thank you. We're having conversations. We have to continue to have conversations with the right people, and we just had the right person and the right people who attend. Those of you who have attended this forum for the first time, remember to leave your contact information on the chat area. And we have these. We would reach out to you for our next public forum to search for new ideas, new education and development, and a community of togetherness, so that we can support each other and rescue Ghana if we can. Thank you.
You can.
We can, and we will. Okay. Thank you, everybody. George, thank you. I'll be in touch.
Yeah. Okay. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And the next meeting is on the 17th, isn't it?
Yes, the 17th.
Please, so put it in your diary. It's on education.
It's also on education, higher.
On the higher level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Higher level education.
Yeah.
Okay. 17th of October.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Saturday.
Same time, same place.
That's what Achampo used to say. Same time, same place, next year.
If people want to stay to chat, they can stay. Otherwise, they can go off.
Oh, yeah. The new people, if they want to introduce themselves.
Yeah.
You can, let's see your faces. Bakamawia, Dasamo, and Dr. Ken.
James.
We've seen Constance, we've seen Joseph Oladoso. Can we see your faces, please?
And introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you are from, Ghana or wherever. Can Dr. Sinto introduce himself?
That's someone. Go ahead.
All right. I hope you can all hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to see your face too.
Just want to see your face.
I have a very bad network over here, so I'm trying to manage.
Yeah.
But I hope you can see me now.
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Dachimo Derek. I'm a student of University of Professional Studies, Accra, in Ghana here. Yeah. So I'm a level 3 currently. My dad is Mr. Kwame Oku.
He told me that you'll be joining us here.
All right.
Yeah, he unfortunately he isn't feeling too well, so
yeah, that's what he said. He apologized to this meeting. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. You can mute now. Ken?
Oh yeah, Kenneth Akwoku, and I work with Nutrien in Florida. Nutrien is a fertilizer company. We are into phosphates, nitrogen, and other chemicals. So it's more or less a chemical plant. We are all over the United States and in Canada as well. Actually, we have a HQ in Saskatoon. And we dabble in all these things, all the development related stuff from time to time. I'm very much interested in the development objectives, things like what is being discussed now. Eugene and I have been talking politics most of the time, things we can all do to help back home. And I'm glad to be part of the team. My background spans engineering, management, and a few other things, and business. So these are areas I believe I could contribute to your agenda. Thank you.
Dr. Sinto?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sinto, you're on.
There's
Sinto.
Baka.
Brandford Kwesi, please can you mute and Bakamia, we are mute for now. Sinto,
yeah, I said
you're
this
on.
Sinto Abdullahi Baluri from Ghana.
Which region?
From education, Winnipeg.
Okay.
Which region are you coming from?
Winnipeg.
Region.
Upper West, please.
Upper West. Okay.
Yeah. Upper West region of Ghana.
Bradford, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I'm from the Volta region.
Wonderful. Good. Welcome.
Yeah.
We
He's from the
see you all.
PDM, People's Democratic Movement.
Okay.
I've been urging them to join us officially in the PAG. They haven't responded to us. I hope that Bradford will do all what he can to bring the PDM into the organization. Talk to Dr. Edu and Co.
Yeah, Bradford, I think I've communicated with him several times on Facebook. So nice to see your face for the first time.
Linda and Constance, can you introduce yourself, please?
Linda and Constance.
Hey, hello. I'm Linda from the Upper East region, also SPM in the Upper East. Yeah, I think yeah, most of you we have met online for some time now. So yeah, that's me, and yeah, hallelujah. That's
Thank you.
James?
Okay, do we have your email address?
Constance.
Yeah, we have her details.
Yeah. Okay.
Constance?
Oh, Constance. Oh,
Can you remove your earpiece? I think it's the earpiece that is making us not clear. If you can remove it and just talk through the phone and hear you.
Go ahead.
Right.
No. No. So then let's go to Hilary and Co. Hilary and Co.
Yeah, Constance is still speaking, I think.
We can't hear her.
We can't hear.
Okay, so we are 6 people here who have joined. So I am here, Hilary. We have James Okolugbo, who is here. We have Vincent, who is here. And we have Richard, who is here. Bismarck has just moved out. So we are also here from the social justice movement in Bolgatanga.
Good. Thank you so much.
Nice, nice.
Bakamawia.
Or Joseph Oladeso, please.
Bakamawia first.
I'm Aziz Bakamawia Ibrahim Aziz. This is my third time of joining this meeting.
Okay, great.
That's great.
I will start now for the.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Joseph Oladoshu. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I come from Africa. I reside in UK, but I'm an African. I was introduced to this platform by my comrade, Yen, and I've enjoyed it very much. I came across Kofi, Dr. Kofi, who resides in
Atlanta.
In Atlanta last year when we had the Pan-African Nkrumah, something about Nkrumah here in London.
Yeah.
And since then we've linked up, and so again linked up with my former comrade Yen. I've put my thought on the chat during the discussion, and I think if you take that up as my own contribution to the debate. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Good.
So people couldn't go. Also, Bismarck? Bismarck, or you've just come back?
All right. It looks like we've got everyone.
Say you are around.
Yeah, I'm around.
Okay.
All right.
Constance, have you been able to get your microphone sorted?
We muted the mic.
I don't think it's a microphone. I think it's just a connection.
It's a connection.
Yeah, just a connection.
All right.
Okay.
Try, let's see if we can hear you then. Not.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm Constance from Ghana. I was introduced to this program by Hilary. I started communicating with Dr. Kofi Roberts. So I hope to continue joining next discussions.
We hope that you get many women to join us.
Okay.
Please, Linda and Constance, do well to recruit more women to join us in our forum. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had about 3 women. Please bring more women the next time you can, because you have to lead the struggle, you know. Otherwise, we are finished.
James, you guys, your microphone is not muted, so we can hear you. Anything else? Brother Kofi, are we good?
Yeah, we're all right. We're all right.
All right.
Okay. Anybody's anything, or we should just call it the day, yeah?
Yeah.
Aren't we meeting this evening?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we have a board meeting tonight.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Bye-bye.
I'll see you all on the 17th, please.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. See you on the 17th.
Thank you, Reverend Mochia, for joining us from the UK. I appreciate that.
All right. Leaving now.
All right.
Let me start moving. I'm joining another meeting.
Another program, right?